I see a lot of differing sentiment toward these sales teams. They're in the way. Why are they so needy? And it's kind of like those, there's TV shows where like, what would happen if an entire segment of something disappeared? It's the same thing. Like if all of sales disappeared tomorrow, none of you guys have paychecks.
Yeah.
So what have you bumped up to in your career? And maybe how did that inspire you to continue in sales or go into sales leadership?
Well, yeah, I do also coach founders that are in founder-led sales still. The goal there is to help them get to the point of when they're ready to actually hire a founding sales role, which is always much further away than when they want to try to do it, right?
Interesting.
Oh yeah, founders.
That's kind of scary.
Most founders, most of the time they don't come from sales. If you look at most of the founders, right? They're often product and engineer people. So they do not have a background in sales, nor do they enjoy it, right? They want to stop selling as soon as possible. To your point, though, founders are going to be the most passionate people about the problem they're solving. They think, I'm going to change the world with what I've built. And no one else is going to feel the same way about that. And first of all, they need to understand that. They need to be okay with it too. But then there's the founder effect that happens when they first go out. So if they do find success, especially really great success, it's their network, it's being the founder, it's that initial growth that they get. And then they already think, okay, well, I've got it. I've got product market fit. I'm ready to go. Hire a salesperson. They're just going to make all these calls and emails, and they're going to be able to just take what I did and scale it. That is not how it works, right? And then they think, oh, well, they weren't the right fit. Go to the next person. And I'm like, no, you were the problem. They weren't the problem.
Dang. How long, I guess anecdotally, I'm an ops guy at heart. I play a right-hand role to leaders like you. Recently, I've kind of gone out my own. I've had to do more selling, right? It's freaking terrifying.
Yes.
You and I have I hate it so much. We have a mutual colleague, Mandy McEwen. She was on the show. And she came back and she asked for some intros, and she was doing just a very traditional sales motion, one that I recognized for a long time because I've been CRO facing, VP facing for a long time. I'm like, oh, this is the real world. And I was like, yeah, let me go do some of these intros. And like I was sick to my stomach after I shot one of those LinkedIn messages. So how long? That's two different things because the founder distortion is like misplaced and everyone's going to care about how passionate I am about my origin story. It's going to sell itself. That's one thing. But before we go back to that, how long is uncomfortable? Like these people don't expect, whether that's in terms of time or revenue. Like they made their first $1 million, still too early. When do you tell a founder, okay, you're close?
Well, that's what makes it hard, right? Because I couldn't just say, well, you got to get to at least $1 million because we all know that depends. First of all, what if your sales cycle and your average contract value is, more enterprise-like? Then you'd only get a couple of customers. That's not product. That's not validation of your ICP or your product, right? So, that's why it's hard. It's not just as simple as get to $1 million or get to X customers. But I do think that you need to have had a handful of like what I call the green flags. So, how many customers have you been able to sell? Is it a contractual obligation, right? None of these like proof of concept type things.
Yeah.
Have you retained any of them?
So like through an entire customer cycle. Yeah.
Yes. Have you gotten to renewal? Because
that's good.
People like to say things like, oh, you've gotten product market fit or validation of your ICP once you've had X amount of customers. But I'm like, no, it's, do you have retention? So that's a lot further along than what you see most companies start hiring salespeople for. Now, there's always going to be caveats to that, but there's that part. And then the other part is where we see this fail a lot is the motion, a repeatable motion that a salesperson can come in and actually do. Founders don't have that. They don't have documentation of their thing. They barely, if anything, have a CRM. And if they've had a CRM, they're certainly not using it fully. So are you going to hire a salesperson to help now build that out for you?
Yeah.
Or do you expect them to come in and just start selling? You can't have both, right? And so it's really a lot about all those nuances that make that stage end up working out or not. But it doesn't just happen there. I mean, to go back to your initial question, I see it happen in later stages all the time. You know, if we hire the salespeople, the deals will just come. Like if they want to go outbound, I'm like, that is not how it works. So
I had some, they're friends now, but they were employers before, and they're probably at about 24 million ARR. And but when I looked at their origin story, it really was this intense, warm network that they had from a consulting firm. And a lot of these guys went off and just created really successful SaaS companies, like Gong included. So they were getting in all these deals. And the ops guy in me, it was kind of it's always a weird thing to be an ops guy, to feel like, okay, am I encouraging, uplifting, or being a pessimist? Because part of me was like, man, that got you really far. Like 24 million is great.
Right.
But where does that go
what?
in 5 more years? Yeah, you know, like, and I think my point in that is that the warm market will get you in a deal, but did they stay with you for 3 years? And who knows? Maybe they hear this one day and they're like, yeah, they did stay with us for 3 years. But
Chad.
I didn't see the other thing is they hired their first VP of sales somewhere around 100 employees and 24 million ARR, and I saw him trying to like chop wood cold. It wasn't as effective. So anyway, before we I want to unpack some more of that, because I think you have things to say about ICP and their approach to go to market. But tell the audience real quick who you are, who you like to serve, how you serve them, and then kind of what your business model is now compared to what it used to be as traditional corporate sales leadership.
Yeah. So I am the owner of Go to Market Done Right. I went off and started a fractional business almost 3 years ago. And I've already said it, but I do coach some founders in that founder-led sales motion to hopefully avoid those avoidable mistakes is what I call them, as much as possible.
Yeah.
But the main focus of my business is to help scaling startups or SMBs, like you said, usually in that 5 to 30 million space. But what it's really more about is we found product market fit. Our business grew either a network organically really, really well, right? Word of mouth, and things were great.
Yeah.
And now it's stopped and we don't really know why. Or that once you get to that like 25 mil or even like 10 mil, those like milestones, continuing that hyper growth you had is a lot harder now, right? Because now the ratio is different. So it's, maybe your growth didn't stop, but you certainly have no plan right now on how to keep that 2, 3, 5x, growth. And what happens is you never scaled on purpose, right? You never grew intentionally. You couldn't go back and say, it's exactly how we got here, so we can just keep doing it, because otherwise you would. So that's where I come in and really help a company understand, like, okay, because what happens is they all go, it's time to go outbound. And I'm like, no, it's time to go on purpose. And there is a difference.
Yeah, that was my first thought when you said that, is someone might think, oh, wow, we're doing great. Let's throw a bunch of bodies at this now. And so that's like, let's increase outbound. So when you put your CRO leadership cap on, you were getting to this earlier, kind of like the difference between people leadership or some of the qualities that aren't necessarily, I dialed the phone 200 times today. How do you start looking at a business if someone wants to take this opportunity? I don't even want to call it a problem, but if they want to take this opportunity to go from 10 to 30 million seriously, how do you start walking through that with them? Like, what's the first step? What are the conversations you're having before you just say, no, let's get on the phone and start making some calls?
Right. So what I usually find out, usually the root issue here is that they don't really have an ideal customer profile fully defined. And then secondly, as difficult, it's not just that they don't have it fully defined. All of the go-to-market departments are operating on a little bit of a different definition of it.
Very
and
true.
So that's what starts happening more around that 10 million space. Because you can get to 10 million, it's really hard. I've done it many times, so I don't want to take anything away from it. But like,
yes,
you can kind of get there on accident with some great product or great timing or whatever. So I
tell people two things. I have friends that own $6 to $10 million businesses. Most of those are like home services. And so first I say two things. Like, one, most of you, maybe not the people in this audience, but most of the people I talk to in St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana, you'll never make it to $10 million. Most of the people in the nation or world, the statistics are so abysmally low. So what that means is, man, you did something amazing. But then also at the same time, as a guy that's been at the scale of like 40 million, 700 million, and even $1 billion in this last AI company, you really, it's hard what you did, but it's also easy and you just began. So like, let's do the hard work.
Right.
Help me unpack the ideal client profile. I had at that same $24 million company, that same VP of sales who came in new, he saw my LinkedIn and he was like, oh, you worked at Webroot, which was a cybersecurity firm. They were about 40 million when I worked with them. And he's like, man, I'm really curious about that. They're our ICP. And it shattered my whole assumption that like well-paid VPs of sales understood what ICPs were, because one, Webroot had 600 employees. I led a department of 23, which means they don't need a consulting firm if they already had 23 full-time me's covering this thing worldwide. And two, they were acquired like 10 years ago. They're not even called Webroot anymore. So like, what does someone think their ICP is? And then how do you coach them through saying, no, this is really what an ICP is? And how do you test that out? Like, what does it mean for the business when they're actually making real money with it now?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of misnaming that's happened there, because the word ideal, I think, makes a lot of people think about like, this is my dream of what I'd love to do, not that's fair. This is what's the best thing for our company. So I've met, there's a little of that, because that's what you're telling me, right? What I'm hearing there is that it's not that company was the best and healthiest customer for them. It was, I would really like to work with that shiny object. Right. That's
so good. I think that was what he meant by ideal.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it. Yeah.
So
we'd love that logo on our website.
Oh, we'd love that logo. Are you equipped to serve that logo? Are they even going to talk to you? All those questions. So that's the most common issue that I see and that I help kind of be a mirror for is, I'm not asking you. I actually have a client now where they never, again, took the time to really define what that meant. So when you hear, this is one of the hints I always tell people. If you ask someone who their ideal customer profile is and they start their sentence off with anyone who, I'm like, I'm stopping you right there. There should be no anyones. It should be only those, or, there's no anyones. Absolutely not. So
someone on the podcast the other day, someone asked me mine, and I was like, oh, I friggin' totally have it, because it's clear in my head, he or she. And I was like, but actually it's more like a four-headed animal. And then, so it's like, oh, it's not as crisp as people think it is.
Yeah. So I would say, don't go into I want this customer, because it would be a huge logo or a huge contract. That's not your ideal. Your ideal customer is the most healthy company if you're B2B, or person if you're B2C, for your business. It is absolutely who you imagined you were solving this problem for from day one, and that you are really good at doing so for. And
do you have any like instant disqualifiers or red flags where you're like, that's not your ICP, and even I know the easy ones, like that's big, that's shiny, but like they don't have money, like red flag.
Actually, like so when I help companies, I do there's a whole thing that I do, and it has to do with literal like one-on-one interviews with people in the company, looking at data. Like I take qualitative things and quantitative things to be able to say, here are the best customers for you, the healthiest, they stay the longest, they give you the most money, they expand with you, they talk to you. The sales cycle itself, it's all where it's supposed to be, right? So there's that part. They resonate with your messaging, all of those things. That's what an ideal customer should do. However, the thing is, let's just be honest, there's not enough of those beautiful, perfect unicorns out there.
That's right.
That are going to even find you, want to talk with you. You have competitors, getting all into that TAM stuff. So I always have a ranking system: high, medium, low. Super easy. So we're going to define your ICP is the high. That's the ideal. And that's who you spend all your resources towards. That's who you make decisions for. It's who you will literally prospect to the end of the earth until they tell you to go find a cliff, right? Like that's a high. Mediums, you don't go after them. Don't do it. Okay. They should be your inbounds. They should come to you, right? And you have to qualify them even more than ever because they end up being often like big time vampires because they don't like you're either not a need to have for them, or especially if you're like a product.
Yeah.
I kind of have this rule of threes. If they don't need 3 functionalities that you do, they're not probably a high. So they just want one thing you do. And the other things don't matter to them very much. So they're...
Well, define a vampire, because I think sometimes a junior seller or even a founder that's just tired of getting shut down, they'll stay in the DMs or on the phone a lot longer than they should, right? Because they're just like, this person's talking to me. So what's a vampire in your words?
Someone who has stayed in your pipeline far too long, right? I mean, they're not fitting within the average sales cycle of what good looks like. They won't tell you no, even though they're not really telling you yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, there's just move on.
Okay, I don't want to jump too far ahead if it's like goes way into tactics, but I found that, especially as an ops guy that's been on the floor with the sellers making all their calls, you overhear a lot, you know? And I've found that sometimes, and again, I apologize to everyone because this sounds like armchair quarterbacking, right? Like, oh, you've never carried a bag, Chad. But like, there's a point in a call where you got to ask yes or no, but then like instead he or she kept talking 10 more minutes. Like, so tactically, what are some of those things where you could say this will help you polarize much quicker? The call's either going to end or like you're going to get to the next step.
Well, you know, really in the discovery process, right? First stage of the pipeline, really. I mean, you should be able to isolate if this is a qualified opportunity or not. So I'm not talking about the very first call you've ever had, which can just be maybe a connect call, right? It should be discovery. The thing is that things change from disco to proposal sent or whatever. Things happen all the time. If you are phenomenal and you put only qualified deals in your pipeline, you still only close it. Like by average statistics, you still only close 30% of them at any given time, right? So you have to know, stuff happens internally. They go with the whatever it might be. So you have to continue to qualify throughout your sales process, and that's where you start seeing, like I said, inbound leads, and they say, "Oh, I heard about you from Chad, and I really need my ICP fixed," right? If it was me, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I get happy years. I don't qualify properly. They keep lingering in my pipeline. It's been 6 months. We still haven't done a deal. No. You're not going in my pipeline anymore. That's it. Goodbye. But we don't like doing that.
What would you say? Here's coaching for a non-seller. Sometimes, so on the enterprise side, that's mainly remote work. These are 70 million or 40 million to $700 million companies. That's always very straightforward for me. The service I provide. A lot of small business owners will come to me here in my local area. And they're just like talking to me for hours. And I'm like, man, what I just did, someone would have paid me 50 grand for. But I never have this break off point where I'm like, and you should pay me money for this. You know, like what would you coach someone who's not traditionally sales? Like, where did you, like some people have said, okay, you can have 5 minutes for everyone. You can have 10 minutes for everyone. But like, what would you tell someone that has value to offer and they just don't like making the ask? Is there any bridge to cover there, or do you just say go hire a salesperson?
Well, no, because if you're a solopreneur or you're not in a place to hire a salesperson, you can't hire a salesperson.
Yeah. No. They wouldn't do it right anyway, which I think goes back to the founder. Yeah.
I think the thing is that you should still always go with what's best for you.
Yeah.
Using tactics that don't align with how you operate don't go well. So
good.
You know,
I mean, but just the other day I was late, you know, I like doing these podcasts and I still have other demands in the day. And he was like, oh, can I come have a coffee with you? And I was like, come on, dude, 3:45. It was freaking 5 p.m. I'm like, dang it. I finally texted my wife. I'm on the way home. And I'm like, I just wasted an hour and 30 minutes with this guy. But at the same time, it's like, you're welcome. God bless you. Like,
yes, I know. But you know what? Here's the thing. I was going to say this earlier when you're telling me that too. That just means that you enjoy helping people. That's what that means, right? It's not, oh, I'm a bad salesperson or I don't come from sales. You just genuinely like helping people. And while you can't help him with the service that you sell, you know, you gave him an ear, you gave him some tips, who knows what. Here's what's really cool about that. There's a very good chance one day he refers you business. He sends someone your way. He contributes to the fact that Chad's a really good human being and your brand. So if you have that mentality, if you really truly believe like it's okay if I've given some freebiness right out there and you're not going to become a customer, great. And if you get to a point, I'm sure you've run a successful business, long enough where there are going to be times in your life where you go, I really don't have time for a 2-hour coffee chat. So like, I'm not going to do it today. Right.
Yeah.
So you had it technically. That's okay.
Sometimes I tell my wife, I'm like, all right, I got some of this time right now. Let's do it. But it's just so funny because there was a point early in the conversation where he revealed that he had just gone from a salary job to like started his business as a real estate agent. And I was like, oh, that means you're broke.
Yeah, I was like,
you've got no budget,
money.
you know? And so like whether you do BANT or MEDIC or MedPick, whatever frameworks people like budgets in all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, he wasn't an ICP. So you're unpacking ICP. What else for the founders that want to progress their business, putting back on the sales leadership hat? What are the things that matter to them to put this in place? Like, are there steps before their first hire, or are there steps that they need to do, like internal housekeeping? Like, where are you guiding this business owner in your journey with him or her?
Well, if I'm coaching them, like I said earlier, then we talk a lot about, making sure we're at the right place to be able to hire someone. And here's the other thing you have to make sure of. I'm just like, let's talk about money, right? Do you have the runway to really hire this person? Because if you don't have the money to really safely hire someone properly, we're not doing this. We're not going to try to, this is where you see all these like commission only, get out of here with all that crap, right? Like stop. Yeah. Right. So make sure you actually can hire them, because maybe you have enough of the other signals I talked about earlier, but if you don't have the money, sorry, sucks for you. You're going to need to keep doing this.
Could you explain for the rest of the companies? I find this makes sense. I've been in startups where there are like 6 people. It was very obvious what the 2 sellers did. I found that once you get into like above 30 people, they start losing sight of why a salesperson is getting a base pay also. So on that compensation, when you're trying to select good talent, what are these things that the base pay funds for them? Why is it so important? And what I'm getting at is a lot of business owners are cheap. I'm like, you're not going to get me for $60,000 a year. Like I see some job advertisements like, y'all are crazy.
I know.
And it's a listing is like 7 pages long.
Yeah, and then it's,
oh, by the way, we can do $6,000 a month. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. I know.
So what is the base pay for in good sales?
Well, that's very, very relative to the sales cycle, right? The type of sale you're doing and all of that. But here's the thing. As a sales leader who's hired phenomenal teams, I'll toot my own horn there, because when people ask me what are you most proud of, I'm like, there's a lot of other things that other people might say. It's the teams I've built is my first one.
No, that's great. That's a great thing to be proud of. Yeah.
And there's just so much that goes into it. Truly, it's like I said. First of all, get the right budget going. Within your company, you see this happen again, where it's like, oh, we got a Series A, we got our Series B, it's time to scale, go hire all these reps. And it's like, we need to make sure we have demand enough for these reps, even if they're like AE typically, right? AEs usually are hunters. That's usually what they're asked to do. That doesn't mean that you want them to sit there and your business is now reliant on them having to bring everything in.
Well, I also I've noticed that some of the talented ones, you're going to get a lot more out of them with warmer leads, marketing campaigns, and
LTV, CAC. The magic number, all those things.
Yeah. So on the talented AEs, you're going to get a lot more out of them if the leads are warmer. If the if you're investing in other things besides that. So what was the rest of that point? What else mattered on that one?
So get your right job description down. Literally, write it out, and then also a path. For real. Don't just hire the great person now. What are they going to want to do next? Because great hires, period. Seller, I don't care what your role is. We have goals and needs. It might be promotions. It might be getting into another, maybe I'm an SDR now, but I actually really want to get into, I had an SDR who wanted to become a PM. That was her goal, right? Whatever it is.
Product manager?
Yeah.
Or project? Product,
yeah. And
yeah. That's a great role.
You need to have a path. You need to foresee how you're going to support this person, because you want them to stay as long as possible, and be happy and give their best while they're with you. So if you don't think about what happens next, which rarely happens in fast growing startups, then you're going to have that too. And then like I said, you need to make sure that this isn't like, oh, well, if we hire all these people, we'll only have Runway for like 6 months or something. Like,
Yeah.
no, like you need to de-risk. And it's very risky hiring people. Your money goes so fast when you hire people.
Someone's in my inbox right now. They did pitch me. I'm like, we want to bring you on as a founder. We got 6 months of Runway. I'm like,
absolutely not.
That's and by the way, there's no equity in this offer. I'm like, what I don't like about that. Here's what I'm gonna get into. What I don't like about that is a founder cares about a business more than anyone, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's your baby.
Right.
But like, you're making a bargain. There's a trade in the marketplace for employees and staff, and the good ones are worth money. I would sacrifice income for equity. I've done that. Like, that makes sense. But sometimes people are coming through and it's like, here's a 7-page job description. It's really 4 people's jobs. We're only going to pay you $6,000 a month. And there's no such thing as equity. We'll talk about that in 6 months. Whoa. Good luck.
And they'll say things like, this is a phenomenal opportunity for you
100%.
to see what it's like working at a great, fast growing startup. Working closely with the founders. Garbage. Get out of here.
So my point to cheap founders, and also, I don't know if you've seen the level. I actually see this more in like 5 million to 10 million. They haven't quite hit a maturity of hiring yet. They probably didn't make it to 20 unless they figured out to hire. But I used to have this little viral video or hook that I do. It was talking about the salary of Buc-ee's, the gas station here in the States. Do you know Buc-ee's?
I do.
They pay those managers $150,000 a year. That's a manager. I mean, granted, it's a gigantic building and probably has 100 employees in and of itself. But people don't understand that you're competing in a marketplace where entry-level talent can get $20 an hour on average in Uber, like driving in the comfort of their car, right? That's $40,000 a year. So you're trying to come through and say, hey, come do commission only. You might make $40,000 a year. So one of my points is the marketplace will outpace you. If you want good talent, you actually have to pay for it. The second one, which you said, is if someone actually is good at sales, they're gonna make a lot of money. They're gonna go somewhere else where like they can make more money. So you won't keep that person long either. So, but then on the ops side, I think what I was trying to get at is, your seller does more. Your seller will do what he or she's compensated for. That's one. But you do need them to do basic admin tasks, like update your CRM, like handle some basic paperwork. So I'm always fond of saying, like, they're getting a base pay to also do some run the business tasks also, and then the rest should be the upside to get them in that sort of entrepreneurial mindset, so they're out there hunting deals and closing deals. So does any of that align, or is that like way off on?
No, I would push it further too. I mean, the thing is that,
let's hear it.
Like, first of all, why in the world would everybody else in the company get a base salary and not them? Why would a salesperson not need to live life? Right?
Well, people would say because they could make commission. But yeah, that's a great point.
And they can only make commission if you have a company where you can actually sell the product, first of all. So let's just remind that to everybody. And
I had some SDRs on a new project where we were selling into partners, and they let us do an experiment to see if they could do some setting for the partner. And she was trying to help me understand her pay later, and she broke it down transparently. And I was like, "Oh, you're like $40,000 base, and maybe you'll make 75 if you're on target earnings." I was like, "That's tragic. That's abysmal." So that was Austin, Texas, too. Like, you're not getting an apartment for less than $2,000 a month. It matters because that talent churned a lot, and then if you want better talent, it's going to cost money.
Well, so there's that. There's just the human aspect of, like, everyone deserves to get paid for the job that they do at the company.
Yeah.
It just so happens that any performance-based role, which would be sales, and there's other ones too, comes with an upside because we're paying you for a skill set in order to close business and bring us revenue that we wouldn't already otherwise have. Why was that so hard? Or even if you're like a renewal manager, a CSM, where you're here to retain, like there's performance based in there. So you get rewarded for doing so, but it's not a guarantee. That's why it's commission.
That one's tougher. I've seen a lot of customer success guys make a lot of money, and I'm like, that's a layup deal. But I don't know.
Well,
maybe they chose right. Maybe they chose better than other people.
See, most CSMs have terrible jobs. They're firefighters all day long, to be quite honest.
Interesting.
So
okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
The typical life of a CSM is being a firefighter. It's not very fun. I got to give it to them.
Super fair.
I've also been a CS leader, so I have lots of empathy for that. But
Yeah.
It just depends on how the company does it. But I will just like to like put a hammer or nail onto the point. There's more than just admin tasks that salespeople do, right? I mean, salespeople, no matter what sales cycle you have, whether you're, transactional or enterprise, great ones understand who's my ideal customer profile? Where do I find them? How do I get them to talk to me? How do I get them to care about what I have to say? How do I manage my CRM in a way that enables me to do a great job, but also reflects to the business what I'm able to be working on? And joining internal meetings and writing emails to people and all the things that lots of people do, right? So there's a lot that goes into selling that has nothing to do with just closing business. That's why you get a base salary, right?
Yeah.
And
that's all fair.
There's a whole other aspect of your best sellers. They're doing other things than just selling. They're providing feedback to the company. They're collaborating with marketing and success and product to make everything better, right? They provide input to how me as a sales leader creates the best strategy for 2026. So there's no reason that they don't get paid a base salary. And if you're jealous that they might make a crap ton of money closing in business, well, again, that's the high reward, but it's a high risk role.
It's a high risk, but also I tell people go into sales.
Yeah, then you try.
I have, first off, I was a recruiter in the military when I was 12 years. I took a 2-year special assignment recruiter. It was a little easier for me on the Coast Guard, air quotes military, because a lot of people wanted to join. So I was more like just qualifying. When I got out, I sold sailboats, 100% commission, and then also I've held like a agent license, a real estate salesperson license in a couple states. So I've done a few of those things. I never, but it's a different mindset. First off, is what I would tell people, and secondly, there are, they say you have to have tough skin to be good in sales, and I understand what people are saying, but also it is an emotional and like a moral, I want to say like spiritual onslaught, it's like you're constantly battling the negativity or like maybe you catch a person at the wrong time and they just dump their entire day on you aside from the fact that you just got 75 rejections, it's an interesting calling, and the people who are really good at it, they'll make a lot of money, and anyone who complains about them making a lot of money, that my go-to reply is like, go do it. It's like nobody said you couldn't. So we're talking about we talked about the people. We have the founders. Before you get into addressing what you call poopy pipeline, I want to talk about no poopy pipelines. Is there more on the people side that this founder needs to think about before they're getting into like processes and systems?
Well, I think one last thing I would mention is, especially when you're ready to scale, most of these founders did not come from sales. So if they're, I'm just saying this from experience, they're usually not people who have been people leaders either. I was a product person.
That's a great point.
I was an engineer.
A lot of them are terrible leaders. They're
terrible leaders.
So good point. Yeah.
And
it's unfortunate.
And they don't want to be people leaders. That's not why they became founders. I actually have a friend who's CEO and founder, and he cares deeply about people and being people first, but he also will say, but I don't like being a people leader. So I have to work really hard on trying to do it because I am not good at it, and I also don't want to do it. So that being said,
but you know what? A moment of empathy for these guys, though. I was in a room with a bunch of entrepreneurs in this conference room. Actually, shout out to Palette North Shore in the Covington, Louisiana area. They were doing like a business mastermind, and we all did the little personality test, right? And I'm totally an ops guy. I'm like a loyal dog, which is both a compliment and an insult. But they've all got the whole vision casting and sales icons. And one of them was really vulnerable and candid, and she was like, I know that I'm good at two things. I can cast vision and I can land the plane. And she's like, everything between those two things, I'm going to mess it up. I'm transparent about it. So from an ops guy, I was like, oh, that's great. Let's go work together. But I also think it's fair. I think entrepreneurs should understand that just because you can get people bought in a vision doesn't mean you can lead them to the finish line. Like there's a lot in the middle there. But also, I wouldn't beat yourself up. Like you do have if you're an entrepreneur and you can cast vision and you do have ideas and you somehow manage to get some people together, that's $1 trillion skill set. So keep doing it. Like the world needs you. So
therefore, I always say like the best founders I've ever worked for and with, now that are my customers, are the ones who are people. Well, this is my personal opinion. These are my non-negotiables. So people first. That one has to start there. That if you're not a people first leader, I don't want to work with you. I don't care if you're going to give me $1 million. You're my low bucket of my ICP. We're not going to a
That's
lie.
right.
Second of all, you need to be someone who cares about trying to constantly be improving, right? So like, if just because you got out of YC and got started doesn't mean you stop figuring out how to do best. Just because you got to 10 mil doesn't mean you've got it all figured out, right? Get your own founder coach, get your own resources, lay into figuring out how you constantly make sure you know what's going on. And for God's sake, stop getting obsessed with some company or brand that's like a billion light years away from where you're at now and trying to copy
Isn't that interesting how there's always another, I don't even say milestone at that point. One comment I have on that, I cherish leadership, whether that's from the 12 years in the military or the 14 plus years doing ops now. And I was recently consulting for one of the billion-dollar AI companies, and this one guy that led one of the GTM systems, he was real smug, and he was a horrible person to work with, super toxic. The teams hated it when he was in the room.
Wow.
It's beyond me why they keep him employed. Yeah, I don't know. But you know that
great.
I know their technology is going so breakneck pace though that I don't know if they have enough time to go look at the director level and be like, you suck, dude, get out of there.
You're horrible.
Anyway, he made this comment like, well, at this point, looking at things from the billion-dollar scale, I think I've got it all figured out. And I'm like, no, dude. No, you are tragically misled on what you think is good leadership and organization. But it occurred to me that is a trap. He's W-2, right? But that's a trap for founders. Founders will look around the room and be like, I created this $10 million thing, like you go do it better. So I feel like that creates a blind spot almost. I'll call myself arrogant. I've got a streak of arrogance, but like also that's a blind spot. Like you still don't know what you don't know.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like you have to be one of those people who goes, I don't know what I don't know. But it's not enough to just know that is what I'm saying. You need to do something about it. And so that's the kind of the magic combination. So when it comes to something like that, you're going to hire someone like a salesperson or a sales leader. One of my favorite CEOs that I got to work for knew nothing about sales. He knew nothing about people or leadership. He was doing what he could, but he was never going to be able to be a leader for me that helped with my sales leadership needs. So what did he do? Yeah. He got me an executive sales leader coach, right?
That's
so
great.
You build that into your budget of some sort. One of the founders I've been coaching for 2 years, we got to a point a little while ago where I'm like, it's time to hire a founding salesperson. And I helped her with that whole process. And now what? Now that salesperson gets to meet with me on a regular basis because this founder has no ability to help coach her on sales stuff. So, a lot of people say, oh, that's really expensive or da-da-da. I'm like, it's more expensive? Failed hires.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. 9 months, 6 to 9 months of a lot of costs there. What does that mean, founding salesperson? I want you to break down those costs if you want to break them down, but maybe the audience does know better than me, but I'm seeing it more and more on LinkedIn at least. There are people hiring a founding salesperson. So what does it mean to be a founding anything?
It's just a term.
I hear cheap. Like, we're not going to pay you enough money. That's what I hear.
Well, that's not good. Yeah, no. Founding became like a term that's kind of trending more in the last couple of years. But there's been lots of founding hires for a long time, and we never called it that before. So you can either be a founding salesperson or you could be like a founding head of sales or something like that. Yeah. Founding CSM, whatever. It means you're the first person at that company to do that role is really what it means. And so you need to be
you're
special.
A guinea pig.
Yeah. Well, you need to be a special kind of person who likes being in that environment. You got to be someone who can build stuff and start executing. And it's a cool role. Like there are people who love doing it. But again, like I said, the company needs to actually be prepared for the role. And
I wish, maybe I'm sensitive to this now because I've been between W-2 opportunities and applying a ton, like 30 times a day to send these applications out. I enjoy the complexity of being in a founding environment, like not structured hats. You have to do it. What I don't enjoy is the way people are trying to write these job descriptions. And I wish there was more of a human level of empathy to it. Like we need someone that knows that this is going to be tough, that's going to come swing mud with us. But I don't understand if they haven't been in the hiring market long enough to know that people have options. But the way they come at it is condescending. It's like you're building your own cloud bot or something, even though they're writing it before that existed. Why are people why is that happening? Is it just my algorithm, or do people just
No.
completely misunderstand how to hire these people?
Well, people have always been pretty terrible at hiring people. That's not new. But the issue is that there's been a shift for quite some years now. And it's now been an employer's market, and it's not been a candidate's market, which it was candidate's market for such a long time.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, you have just so many unemployed people now. There's just the layoffs are not ending. They keep happening, right? I mean, just terrible.
That's true.
And so
it's weird because I feel like I know that I'm still in high demand. I have noticed it's taken longer this time, and I didn't know if that was age or state. But yeah, but even in the revenue generating roles, like so do you feel like some salespeople are having a tougher time getting positions?
The worst. I know the best salespeople my ride or die. See, I'm not needing to hire them, so I would do so. The best salespeople I know, it still takes them a year to get a job.
Yeah.
Like it's the worst job market in the entire world. It's horrible. It's condescending. It's inhumane. And this is a whole soapbox.
Well, I feel better actually.
Yeah, no, like if you didn't know, it's
no, I was telling, I'm
garbage.
from Louisiana. This is all the HR people might validate this or not. I'm from Louisiana originally. I've done all my SaaS work in like Texas, or Colorado, and a headhunter brought me back to Louisiana with an offer I couldn't deny. A year and a half later, I'd kind of built myself out of a job, moved into it. I've just found that state by state, it's very like the politics or the taxes or something in Louisiana, it's way less attractive to employers. So I've told my wife lately, like, babe, this Louisiana is killing us. But I don't know, maybe it's just the market at large. That is super interesting.
No, it's terrible. This is that'd be a whole nother episode to dig into so many of those things. But
someone sent me yesterday. I had my daughter at gymnastics. Sorry to go on a tirade on this one. And it was it was the weirdest recruiter. Sounded like she was from a law firm, but she sent a quick reply like, hey, I'd really love to chat more about you. Could you just double confirm that you met the requirements of all these bullets? Could you write 1 to 2 sentences next to each one? And my initial reaction was like, the nerve of this woman.
Found me.
Yeah. But then I sat down, and my daughter's at gymnastics, and she's at the age where it's like we're up there and they're down there with the instructor doing it. So I went on my phone and like banged them out real quick. I'm like, sure, we could talk at large at this in an interview. And then, you know what? Sorry, here's another one. Someone sent me another one where it was the first time ever, it was an empty video screening. They sent me a link, and they said, hey, we'd love to hear more about you. We got an overwhelming response. Will you click this link, talk into this camera, and answer these 3 questions? You got 26 seconds to read the questions, and then it would count down like a photo booth, 3, 2, 1. And then you'd have to like remember, they were like, wait, they just asked how I built automation, and if I ever, and so you're awkwardly like in a huddle room talking to an empty Zoom. And so I was just like, that's weird. I just kind of kicked back and talked naturally. They did come back to me and then say, okay, this is great. We want to talk to you. Are you available tomorrow at 1 p.m.? That's another thing that blows my mind because I'm busy and I'm in demand. No, I'm not available tomorrow
I'm not available
at 1 p.m.
in less than 24 hours. Oh, you see my face. Like, I'm not going to hide
but why,
it.
Yeah, but why do people feel like that works? But that leads me to believe that somewhere it is working. My challenge with the fact that it is working is the person on the other end of that funnel is not going to be, it's going to be desperate, not that talented, and probably lying on these questions. So I don't think that ends well for employers if that's really where that's going right now.
Yeah, well, because there are people willing to do things because people need jobs, even if they are the best of the best. They are at some point, and this is the thing I say, I'm so bullish about non-negotiables, and I have been for so long, and that's all nice. But when you need to survive, when you need to feed mouths, you need to keep a roof over your head, you have to make different decisions. And the problem is there's just so many people who are in that position, and so they will do the weird, horrendous, inhumane blank screen thing that you just said because they have to. And there's so many people applying that companies are using really strange things to like weed out a lot. But
it made me think that we're going into a world, and not to be clear, I'm not an idealist. Not everybody's going to win, and a lot of people are not going to win. But you have to be owning your own thing in some capacity, one way or another. Yep. I think you and I first connected when you were talking about the fractional CRO title, and I had an opinion. I said something like, "What lawyer has ever called him or herself like a fractional lawyer? She just is a lawyer, and she does her thing." But we're in a world now where you have to build something of your own. If it's important to you to maintain those non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever want to be in that position again. It was the first time in my life I'd ever had a layoff, and like everyone's got the same story. You open, someone's like, "Oh, we had a meeting for you at 8." You get on there, and there's 2 guys instead of the one you expect to talk to you. And I was like, "Oh,
here we go.
This is interesting." You know, it was an out-of-body experience real quick. I instantly felt relief because it really was a horrible, that AI company was a horrible experience. But also I was like, dang, this is trippy.
Yeah.
So,
I would say people who've never been laid off, I'm like, either you've just been insanely blessed, good for you, happy for you, and or like you've been living under a rock. Like, I'm just like, you know, it's happened many times in our household, and it's, you know,
I think it's more normal than people think.
It is.
I used to resign a lot quicker, but I just knew this time if I resigned, my wife would murder me because we have 3 kids.
Well, you have 3 kids. Exactly. I mean, we have 3 kids too, so things change, like I said. So yeah. I mean, that's one thing I've said when my last job I had that I loved so much, I always thought I'd never be surprised if anything were to happen for lots of reasons, and I was the most surprised. And you know, that's when I made the decision to go build my own thing. And I've continued to have conversations about, you know, joining orgs. I still, you know, like it happens. No one's met my non-negotiable, and
I'm still there.
You know?
I don't have a lot of. I'm blessed compared to many Americans, and I honor that and respect that and appreciate that. I don't have a lot of time, and so I'm going to have to figure something out in 69 days. But there's still a lot of non-negotiables where I'm just like, nah, I'm good. Wishing you the best. Like, I would rather go take half of what I made before and like do something I enjoy doing. I don't want to keep us in doomsday too long, but
poor people.
There's another thought about it. Let's see if I can find it real quick. AI bosses firing, layoff, terminations. Dang it. All right, it'll come back some other time.
Maybe it's about Poopy pipelines.
Yeah, let's get into Poopy pipelines. You're running a business. Don't run a business with Poopy pipelines. So how do you identify that, first off? What does it even mean? What are your corrective actions when you do see it?
So I'm sure you can relate to this, you know, doing your own thing. CEOs don't tend to know what the problem is that they have in the company. They just feel the symptoms, right? And so that's why I say, like, your Poopy pipeline in your organization is the actual problem, but the symptom is that you don't have the ability to accurately forecast, right? Yeah. That's what you know, and you can see and you can feel. And it is not something as simple as...
Oh, sorry, just banged this whole conference table, and there was a guest walking by right next to me. So,
It has nothing to do with just, oh, you need better RevOps. It has nothing to do with just yelling at your salespeople to update the CRM more. It's a whole thing that comes down to a few. So first of all, for years and years, and still to this day, most organizations have a sales manager or a sales leader, however many levels you may have in your org. It always ends up happening on like Fridays. Slack me your best case, your most likely, and your commit, right? And make sure it's updated in Salesforce, HubSpot, etc.
That's right. That's right.
That's what just happens.
Yeah.
Because
the sales ops guy in me is delighted just hearing it.
Right? Because CEO Cindy needs it for the board soon. I'm sorry, but AE Chad does not give 2 shits about what CEO Cindy or the board needs. AE Chad wants to be successful in his own role. AE Chad has his own rent or mortgage to pay, or goal to buy a house, or whatever it might be. So that talk track does not work. You know, the whole, like, you have a responsibility to the business, like, get out of here. Like, that works on 1% of people. So that whole culture is part of what, you know, creates what I call Poopy pipelines. The other big issue that happens is when you become a sales leader for the first time, you get that first, like, sales manager role. You all of a sudden are now given a responsibility to be a part of forecasting for the business, because you'll be like, what's your team going to do this month or this quarter? But guess what doesn't happen? There's no magic switch that turns on in your brain that goes, I went from not being knowing how to forecast to suddenly knowing how. You've just been given the responsibility.
That's so good.
And you become right? Go ahead.
I had directors in EMEA, EMEA, and APAC, and we separated Japan out of APAC. So I had 4 forecasts that I would lead for the CRO and later some other chief level CXO, Chief Excellence Officer. Don't get me started on that. But exactly. He was a friend of the CEO.
What does that mean?
There were two guys that were just so good at forecasting, and the other guy would get so bothered like that we would just have the audacity to ask him like, what's the average sale price going to be? It looks like this is going down, Dan. Do you have any commentary on that? And I remember distinctly as an operations guy just coaching him a lot, like, this isn't personal, man. Like, nobody's coming in here and saying you're failing. We're just trying to create the weather report.
Right.
But what you're reminding me is that nobody so maybe those other two were just naturally good, or maybe Tim had been doing it a long time and he did get some training on it, but it's not a native intuitive skill, right? I think if you were just crushing pipeline to then be like, I have to care about the 12 people under me also.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel less annoyed by Dan.
Yeah,
at this point.
Dan was just never taught how to do it, and and then you become like the first time head of sales, and then your CEO thinks like you should magically know how to do this. So now I'm going to go to the board every quarter, and you need to tell me what we're going to hit, and it's not happening, right? So this is it's just this chain of command. Now those other two.
But is there more to Poopy pipeline before you talk about addressing it? Is it like, I know the cliche stuff is bad data, but like what specifically? Is it bad account names? Is it they missized their deal? They're calling something $1 million. It's going to come in at 250. Like, what are all the things that go into that Poopy pipeline?
I mean, the answer is yes, right? The thing is, there's a lot of variables. If you work with me or for me, you will know exactly. I'll have a whole document. I still have my Notion document from the last full-time role I had. Like, people knew. And it was built into our CRM so that it was very easy and clear to know.
That's good.
You shouldn't have to remember all of it necessarily in your head. But, first and foremost, here's one thing I see a big issue in earlier orgs. I'd say, like, if kind of in that, like, up to 5 mil, like, founders still been really involved in the sales process, they always put leads in the pipeline.
The founders.
Well, because
I understand. You're saying they have a lead and they're forecasting it as pipe.
Yeah, they have the pipeline set up, the CRM, where it's like stage 1 is always like inbound lead. And I'm like, that doesn't go in the pipeline. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And they like look at you like,
not even qualified yet.
Yeah, it's not even qualified yet.
That's good.
So you should only be putting qualified deals in your pipeline. Your pipeline should be a snapshot of your best chance at getting revenue. So if you put something that is just an inbound lead, then that's not what it is. So there's that part. And then it goes... I
wonder if, sorry to cut you off on that, but as an ops guy, I've had to like explain sometimes on opportunities to a seller, and the conversation would normally end with something like, listen, Jill, an opportunity is literally an opportunity for you to like make money for the company or lose money for the company, and it always ends in either closed won or closed lost.
Right.
There is no like, it's not like a lead record where you're tracking calls and then we just delete it later if it didn't pan out. You know what I mean?
There's this weird secret like thing that happens with sellers, and they're like, if it's out of my pipeline, it will disappear forever. And you're like, no, it doesn't. But like it does happen. Like, it's a whole like joke. But the issue is that again, maybe Jill is having unrealistic expectations being put upon her by the business about like, you need to have so many deals created per week and per
That's
month,
fair.
right? And
that's fair.
That's usually what happens. So instead, I'm like, you want less deals created if they're real, technically, right? If you don't have enough of them, that's the problem. Not putting fake numbers in. So
there's a risk for all the people who have tried MBO, managed by objective, is a comp strategy out there. When you put things like opportunities created in HubSpot or Salesforce, they're gonna. I'm not saying that sellers are inherently bad or trying to work the system, but they're gonna figure out how to get their paycheck, and if that means create these 7 ops, like 4 of those ops were probably just pulled out of whatever
they weren't really
crevice
qualified.
they were hoping.
Yeah, so it really starts there. But to your point, it's like, is it the most accurate, up-to-date, active information? Because you can get pretty good at that part for a lot of organizations, especially the bigger mine got, right? It's like, if it was just my 5 AEs and that's all I did, fine. I'm now executive leadership. I have sales management below me. I have SDRs. I have AEs. I have enterprise. I have mid-market. I can't keep track of it. So I have to have this culture from the bottom to top.
That's right.
That we're all doing this because I want an AE. I sit down with AEs and I go, this is your tool. This is your success, not mine. I actually don't need you to worry about how I'm going to do or how the business is going to do. I already know, because I'm a good people leader, that it's really important to you to be able to buy a home. You guys are family planning. and you want to buy a home. And we literally have already worked out how much money, how much commission you would need to make by when.
That's good.
To do that. So let's use your pipeline as a picture for you to know how that's possible. So if you put garbage in it, you don't know how to get to that goal.
Yeah, now you just went, I don't know if you intended to or if that's just your nature, but you just went deep into like the one-on-one culture, understanding who this person that works for you really is, what motivates him or her. Do you have formulas or frameworks around that, or is that just the way you think naturally?
It's just how I am. That's why I'm saying, like, I mean, I could make them, but that's what I care about. That's why I love leadership, first and foremost. Yeah. I love it because of that, and I love making an impact with the company. I'm not an IC for life person. I don't care enough about that. Yeah. I'd rather get paid less money, because you do when you're not a good IC, right?
Yeah.
And so, and that's just how I'm wired. So if you start there, now the salespeople care about their individual pipeline, which just becomes rolling up to the whole business's pipeline, and then you get the most accurate data out of it. To also use that for your, because great forecasting is both intuition and data. You have to have both, because all the data does is give you a picture of what's likely going to happen from past behavior. But when
do you have an example? I know that sorry to cut you off. Again, I'm nodding along because I've seen good sellers, and you're talking like a good seller. And there is a level of like finesse or intuition. But if someone's like stage 3, whatever that stage is, let's just pretend it's like late stage and there's 5. And there's these stupid little frameworks, like you went through your med pick or medic or band. Everything's checked. But then that seller's just telling you like, it's not coming in this quarter. You know, it's like, what is that other thing that he or she's picking up on? Is it a thing, or was it sentiment that maybe we just have no way of tracking? Like, what are some steers that you've seen in that where you're like, no, you got to listen to the salesperson. She didn't commit it to forecast for a reason. Yeah.
Well, so I have I think maybe a really good example of how my data was saying one thing and my sellers were saying another, and it was mid-quarter. So, 2022 was a really bad year for a lot of companies. Right. And the company I was at, we're like, we're doing great. We're not, it's not affecting our sales cycle. We're still powering ahead. I had gone from 5 to 10 AEs that year. And like I said, we built out an SDR team. I had all this stuff going on. And we were really good at forecasting because of all the things I had built in. Well, I had a formula. It was my AEs. We actually would play a game every quarter called Name That Forecast. So I would reward the person who was the most accurate forecaster at the end of every quarter. You were the king or queen. You get like Amazon money.
I wish there was more comp tied to that. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't who sold the most. That's the thing. You could have. I did have a floor for certain qualifications. If you only got 50% of your quota and you're forecasting,
I'm gonna get 1.
Yeah, we're not doing that. But I mean, like,
he's number 1.
The person who could have sold the most, but they were like, well, but I forecasted, only 70% accuracy, you didn't win. So it was about the accuracy. So I would have them start the quarter off with name your forecast. And then we would do one at the top of each month in the quarter. Meanwhile, I had a whole way of doing it with all the data we've had so that I knew based off of all that what we would likely do. So I'd take their number all together. I'd take my number all together. I'd look at it. And then I'd always kind of think about, does this seem good? And then my way of telling my CEO and then to tell the board was, here's what we're probably going to hit, give or take, 5 mil in MRR was usually my kind of buffer. And then I'd say, if we get to the low end, it's probably this. If we get to the high end, it's probably this. And then at the top of the month, we would kind of gut check. Well, we got to about halfway through the quarter, and my AEs, their forecast was 10 million MRR less than what we had started with and what my numbers were still saying. So I went, where did our 10 million go? Right. And when I talked with all of them, now we were seeing some of the effects that other people had been seeing in 2022. It didn't disappear. It didn't close lost out of the pipeline. It pushed out.
Kept pushing. Yeah.
We had more stakeholders. Because at that time, right, a lot of companies were doing layoffs. They had freezes. They had restructuring. And so there were more stakeholders involved. There was people were like, oh, I can't do this till next quarter. So
or you lose a champion,
or you lost a champion, or whatever. So we were just getting pushed. Our sales cycles got longer, and I went. We are now, and by the time that quarter ended, I had enough data to go, we're now going to have to account for this, quarter's being affected.
That's very interesting.
So if I hadn't had my AEs tell me that anecdotally, and I have, we had Gong and we have things too, but like I got it early. So I told my CEO, you go tell the board right now, not later, not we didn't make it. Because this is what happens. They get scared and they go, desperate,
for sure.
And then they're going to try to make it anyway. No, you go tell them right now. Here's what we're doing about it, but tell them now.
Yeah, that's I had empirical data for a long time where it was like anything that made it to stage 3 was like X% going to close.
Right.
And but that wasn't something we tracked, That would have been interesting to say, oh, hey, look, over the last year, particularly like anything post-COVID for a lot of people or post bubbles, I could see where that would blow out. So you think that because you did the same top of funnel efforts or had the same early stage deals that you could I started to loathe the word extrapolate, that you could like extrapolate out where you're going to be in there. That's cool. I was with Rubrik for when they were 700 million. They're a tech firm that does cybersecurity, and they IPO'd later on. They had tremendous forecasting discipline, and also I think before we were recording, you mentioned that they had a brilliant training hierarchy from like SDR, BDR up. I'd watch them go do huddles in the hall, role playing, objection overcoming. But one thing I always cherished at Rubrik is the people with the highest base salaries and variables, they were getting paid because they were so good at forecast accuracy.
Yeah.
And that company would routinely do $10 million, $12 million deals. And the largest one I sat on was a $23 million deal. And even on that $23 million deal, it wasn't like a hope and a prayer. And if we can just get 5 more calls, they were just so mature and senior in their perspective on it that when they said this next step is happening, we're on May 15th, they just made it happen. So that was interesting because I think the weather makers or the rain makers get a lot of hype and attention. But I would, at an enterprise level for sure, I'd take 10 forecast accuracy over 1, rain maker any day. I think it's just gets you farther.
Well, and if you've been doing it long enough, you kind of asked earlier too about like what's that gut, thing that happens, because even though Chad is telling me that he's going to get it done by April 30th, and I'm telling my VP of sales, Chad ain't gonna get it done.
Yeah.
Like, why do I know that? Because I've done this enough where I just have this gut reaction where I'm like, it's not likely. So I'm gonna put it in most likely. I will not put that in commit, right? Like there's a difference. And that's the thing is I would teach, that's the other thing you have to teach is like commit, most likely, best case, which is kind of the 3 categories that you use. I tell people like, you better not put anything in a commit unless it's out for signature. Like,
that's a great point. That's fair.
Right?
There's no upside. There's no upside in putting it into commit if you're not sure.
No. And so commit should be a very small amount at a rolling, period of time. Most likely also means you gave me a verbal. We're most likely doing this because you said we'd like to move forward. Maybe we have a procurement Bob battle we're getting through or something. Yeah. But this still should not be like, I think it's most likely going to happen because they do have the budget. They really like what we had to say, and I've sent them a proposal. That means nothing.
So how much of this leans on good leadership, and going back to maybe someone who's still 5 to 10 trying to grow to 20, can they systemize any of this? Like, are there good ways to incentivize good behavior? Like, are there traps that they can avoid early on, or is it all just you got to hire good people with good leaders?
No, it's all of the above, and that's why I have this offering as complex as it is, because it does start with a lot of what I said. It's, do you have the right mindset, top to bottom, from founder down to an SDR? Why do we care about this, and how does each person care about it? But then you also have to coach on how you would then get salespeople, sales leaders, whomever, to scrutinize what's going on in the pipeline. And then you need to have a RevOps structure that supports it, because what happens is we have that age-old battle of like, I'm going to make things required in the CRM to make you put stuff in there.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's horrible because you either have way too much, and like you said, if this is what I have to do to get to my next step, I will put whatever I need to put in there. So I'm going to put garbage in if I need to go through. But if you don't put enough required things, you also don't get enough data, right? So
yeah, that's right.
It's a nuance of like making it so that it's actually helping that salesperson feel like it's helping their actual day to day, and not being a blocker and then teaching the highest, whatever your highest sales leader is, then we got to teach them the actual way to forecast, because any of these CRMs still don't really do it. So you have to, like you said, each of your deal stages in your pipeline has a likelihood of closing by X date, not ever.
That's right.
Right?
That's
my
right.
God, how many times have you seen, well, we have X amount in our pipeline, this is our win rate, so we'll close this much by the end of the quarter.
Yeah, and the deal's like 320 years old.
Right? I'm like that. The deal in stage 1 and the deal in stage 5 has a different likelihood. And if you're telling me in 1 month versus 7 months, my probability changes.
Yeah.
So they don't account for all that. And they don't go and look at the pipeline enough to go, well, we have this $1 million deal, which is like a whopper.
Yeah.
You have to take that out.
You got to normalize out. Yeah. And some of that on the ops side, there's a lot of laziness in that. When I came in, I did technology first in the military, then API, retail integration on the corporate side. So I was kind of thrown into sales ops on accident, and then I just rose the ranks through that department. But they used to call that department sales stops before before I took it over, because
all I did was block
you
them.
you had all these required fields, and look, I've grown to really appreciate the analytical framework in some people, but like also if your inclination when you get told something is to find the 15 things wrong with it, you belong in like QA. You don't necessarily belong in department leadership. Yeah. It's a different skill set. It's appropriate, but like not in sales ops. Now, but what I mean by the laziness is someone faces some random problem at the company, like let's say product, whoever's going to do product enablement, they didn't know that XYZ happened from a salesperson. Oh, put a required field in. Yeah. It's like, well, by the time you do that, they've got 72 different required fields. They don't know what half of them are. They don't care. Someone called it the Christmas tree, and this is Salesforce specific, but like the Christmas tree stage progression where you just click save and wait for all the light ups to come up. And you're like, oh, let's go. Let's go fix the errors. Yeah. Why not think? And this is to the founders too, because you have to spend money on this. Why not think smarter? Like, why can't you create dependencies? How come if that salesperson didn't close a deal for $1 million for this product you love so much, that a notification didn't automatically go to Slack or into Teams or whatever, and then get some kind of confirmation in the product, or you built out APIs that did this? So it really bothers me when people think that leadership or management is like, let's make another sign or another required field or another notice that they have to click OK to.
I think there's not enough auditing in most organizations from a RevOps standpoint, because it's like I said, it gets very opsy. So what we did at one of my orgs that I suggested to my clients that have an actual like RevOps position is every quarter you should do a survey to anyone, any person that has to use the CRM on a regular basis. So it's usually your sellers and your customer success side. And you ask them questions to understand, like they're the customer, right? Like how everything's going. You should do that every quarter, because things are constantly changing. So you can always be improving to enable them. RevOps, operations in general, should be an enablement function. It should not be a blocker. It is the
operational support. Yeah, 100%. It's a support role, and people lose sight of that because it is now a high-paid, mid-six-figure salary job, and they bring in a stuffiness to it. But you should understand, you are support. I think what's funny is the military cracks me up, because if you're in operations in the military, everyone knows that that's a support role, unless you're if you're in operations, you're like doing the cool things. You're like special operations. But so when you're in the corporate side and you're like, I'm in operations, they feel like I'm some cool guy. No, you're a support role. You're here to support the people doing the hard work out there.
Yeah. So I think that's important. And I also think that giving the right compensation and objectives to the operations,
that's huge.
Roles.
Also, but that's also very complicated. So companies take the lazy route, and we're in May now, so somebody was just joking. So Jan, February, March, April, May. Yeah, so we're about halfway through Q2 for a lot of people. And a lot of people still don't have their plan for the year. That's not uncommon,
It's not
like,
okay
just go out and sell. It's horrible.
So
but it's laziness. It's because they're doing this in 7 different spreadsheets, because they won't invest in systems, because they won't bring talented people on, because they consider commissions or compensation an afterthought. I have a lot to say about that too, especially clawbacks. But
God, clawbacks.
I know. I don't even know I don't know how to frame that one up. Like, there's an appropriate time for clawbacks, but like clawbacks are not appropriate when you as the company messed up, you know? It's like,
yeah. I actually ended up having a commission structure where we didn't have clawbacks. And it was
sounds scary.
amazing. But the
that's good.
It was phenomenal when I first joined it. We were like 2 mil. I was like the 11th person. I was brought in to be the sales leader in scale, and they weren't doing them at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, well, but I'm like, God, they're just the bane of everyone's existence for good reason.
Yeah.
And I went with it. And you know what? The downside was that the A's didn't get paid till the company got paid.
Okay.
Okay.
I understand
so
how they
there was
pulled
no
that
clawback.
off then. Yeah.
But
yeah.
lots of companies don't have that sort of we didn't have customers that were like, we're never going to pay you, or we're going to churn, you know.
Yeah.
So you can't make that one size fits all, but it's something
Agreed.
to consider.
That's tough too, if like, depending on your rev rec or how you're accounting, where they're 2 months free with the net terms, my brother runs a couple $1 million in contracting. He does that to guys on his side. He's like, when they pay me, I'll pay you. But that's also because they're broke, you know. So it's like, it's
you have to do
safety
it.
mechanism.
You have to do it right.
Yeah. So what would you tell younger sellers that want to journey into leadership, or anyone else who's listening to this that's considering sales in a tough job market right now? Like, do you have encouragement that you give to just out of college or even skip college and they want to go make an impact in the world?
One thing about sales in general as a profession is like, there's so many people who get into it that shouldn't have gotten into it. There's a lot of not very good sellers out there. There are far more mediocre and not great sellers out there than there are good ones. It's just
so good.
It's just facts. And it's not because like, and I'm not saying the way of like, you just suck as a seller. It's like, it's because this is not the right fitting role for you. And it gets glorified, right? Sales gets glorified because of money and things like that. But there's so much stress that goes into being a salesperson with a, especially if your OTE is at least half of what you're supposed to be making from closing business, things of that nature. And I've been I was in car sales for 5 years before I got into tech. I did commission only, right? Like,
I did a couple of those actually. 12 cars. Yeah. That's a brutal business.
It's, when people tell me, oh, I used to sell cars, I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, for 2 months. I'm like, no, you didn't sell cars. You have to have been in it for years, right?
That's true.
And I don't recommend anyone ever do it. That's the other thing. But
no, there's a lot of cocaine and late hours in the car business.
There's a lot of bad things that happen there.
So be
especially
careful
when you're a young woman. That was fun.
For sure. For sure.
But the reason why I say that is like, I don't want people to go and get into sales just because, one, it seems like a glorified role, and or they think that they're going to make a ton of money. You don't make a ton of money if you don't do well at it. And
that's right.
There's so many other ways. I actually always joke, and I'm like, I don't want any of my children to follow in my footsteps to be in sales. I want them to go be an engineer, go be anything with a salary, right? Like consistency and stability. Yeah. So far, it's not working very well, but oh well.
But are there any qualities where you're like, if you like such and something, sales might be for you, like, is there anything like that?
Well, I think there's a few things. One, introverts actually make phenomenal salespeople.
Very interesting.
I'm an introvert. People always get really surprised because I'm so outgoing. But I'm outgoing from here. And right. And I mean, I'm obviously in person too, but I am an introvert through and through.
Yes.
And introverts, our brains are naturally a little bit more wired to have really fantastic active listening. So if you are not a great active listener, you are going to not be as great of a salesperson. You could still be. I'm not saying you couldn't, but active listening is what makes phenomenal salespeople overall. Because we talked about MedPick and BANT and all that stuff. I hate all of those. I don't like those, because when you push, now I like what it can teach you about how to make a great discovery call, right? But if you just hit a checklist, you didn't do your job.
They're waiting for the next answer.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, now I'm supposed to ask this question. Phenomenal active listeners hear what you just had to say, and they know when to go deeper. They know when to come back like 5 questions later, right? Like that makes for really great sales. And the other thing is, if you genuinely like helping people, and you said something earlier, like, I'm not good at sales because I don't know how to ask for the business. That's not what makes a great salesperson. Wanting to help somebody is actually what makes a great salesperson. So
yeah, that's the best deals. When people have closed me, the best deals I've ever been on, because again, in RevOps, we're responsible for software systems that companies pay $300,000 to $500,000 a year for. I get a lot of prospecting calls, and the most helpful ones, like I truly believe that they cared about solving it. That I wanted to add on the introvert. I actually identify as an introvert in the sense that I recharge. My battery is recharged when I withdraw.
Inside,
do you know what I mean?
Home. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the difference. Some people are charged, like they want to renew their energy, so they're going to go out with all their friends.
Yep.
To me, that sounds absolutely
literally
exhausting.
my worst nightmare. Like, please don't make me do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is, okay, so active listener. And also, I love that you say that because the caricature or the stereotype of a bad salesperson, or like from the 1980s movies, or even used car sales, that's an over talker, right? That person is over talking and forcing you through a pipeline. It's not super effective unless you're in a scarce, like little commodity market where someone has no choice.
Right.
Or you're like literally taking advantage of old people and selling them timeshares, you know?
Which,
it's like,
and even if you're good at that, even if you're good at people, you know, there's a difference too. That's called convincing. I'm not in the business of sitting here to convince people to do anything.
That's so good.
I'm here to see, are we a good fit? And so that's, at the end of the day, I actually have a post later that I have to post about like when mutual action plans are a good use and when they're not. And my whole point is when you see our joint plans or there's lots of names for them, right? Deal rooms, whatever.
But like with the prospect, or is that
with
with
the
you
prospect.
and the team? Okay.
If you're one of those sellers where you're like, I use these to try to get them to follow my sales process, then I'm like, then don't do it. This is why they either don't work very well or why they don't, like your prospect doesn't adopt it, because you're just trying to convince them to do what you want them to do. That's not a good salesperson.
Yeah.
A good salesperson and process is, are we a good fit? And then I'm going to try to uncover along the way continually that we are in fact a good fit. But if you're not a good fit, I need to be able to say, goodbye. You're not a good fit. Not I'm shoving you into my box to make you buy this thing. I'm going to convince you to buy it. I'm going to discount it until you say yes. I'm going to whatever it is. That's not good sales. So if that's what you want to do and you like tricks and tactics and you like the thrill of just closing a deal, then like you can go for it. No one's going to like you. You might still sell well, but no one's going to like you.
I think the cold calling bros are getting a lot of attention on LinkedIn lately, or maybe just my algorithm. But to be fair, like that's different, right? It's different to like get a pattern interrupt, get to the stop, and get their attention. Now, what you do after that, really, really matters.
Yes.
Are you trying to solve a problem? Are you an active listener? It's like I look at the calling bros of like, okay, you just earned my attention. You got a quick little laugh from me. Let's hear it. And again, I've made a lot of money supporting salespeople, and I'm so grateful for that career. When salespeople finally get a hold of me, I'm generous. I try.
Me too.
I'm just like, let's run through it. And sometimes it's terrible, and I'm just like, look, you're disrespecting my time, and like, just wish you the best, guy or gal. But but other times I'm like, okay, walk me through this. Let's hear what you got. So, I don't know. What else? Any other encouragement you give to someone that wanted to go into sales? Like, what's not the ceiling, but what could they look forward to? Like, what does that career lead to for someone who really makes a whole 20 years out of it?
Yeah. Well, the really cool thing about getting into sales is how many skill sets that you can hone in on or improve that translate to so many things, even parenting. You know, you have children, you're going to be negotiating with terrorists, 100%. Okay? Like,
I got a 3-year-old right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, lady. I do alternate ending closes all the time. I lose that.
Giving options.
I used that when I was, that's right.
Yeah.
I learned that when I was a recruiter. Hey, sweetie, you want the pink dress or the green dress?
Right, because you're going to choose. Yeah, that's actually a really good sales one, car sales one, instead of like trying to, you go like, you can have this option or you can have this option.
That's right.
So there's just so many phenomenal skills. It can be your speaking skills, your listening skills, your some which negotiation really just means learning how to compromise, which is a phenomenal skill to have as a human being, right? So even if you don't need to choose a sales role because you're I'm gonna build a career in sales. It's such a great place to start that will enable you to be great at any other like types of roles that you might have. And I remember, because my eldest is, he's graduated. He's in sales.
Goodness, Lindsay, I never would have guessed.
I know. So
that's why I said,
that's why I said, like, I already failed. One of them did it anyways. But,
look, for what it's worth, my brother came out of the Army at like 6 years, and then he did a political science degree at LSU, and then he got out and sold for Affleck. And I was like, what are you doing? But he's had this wonderful sales career in HR SaaS solutions now, and I've just watched him really shine and thrive, and it recharges his personality. He's got great stage presence now. He does a lot of public speaking at these conventions, and my heart swells up when I see him shining there. I'm like, good for you, dude. Never expected that. Yeah.
And he kept applying for like BDR roles and stuff too, and I'm like, I don't want him to be that role, And my best friend, who's been in tech and SaaS and phenomenal head of talent and people person, she goes, it'll be really good for him.
Yeah.
And I went, you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
You're right. Even the bad stuff that happens when you're a BDR and SDR, because majority of companies do that role completely wrong. She's like, he needs it. He needs to go.
For sure. And it's all better than a car dealership.
And it's all better than following me.
It is.
I told him that. I said, you may not do that. I will not allow it. Yeah. So it is. And you know what? Like, he works for McKesson. Like,
yeah.
He did it, so, and who knows
That's
what
great.
He'll stay in, but it can be a great thing to do to learn so much and get yourself into whatever else you want to do later. You don't have to stay in sales, but if you do want to, you can make, great money. You can get, you can move up really quickly in types of roles, which is, if that's something that's important to you, it is to me, like growth, right? Like you get that. And then if people leadership is something that you love, there's so much leadership options within sales roles, right? But you need to make sure that you want to be a leader for the right reasons. If you think you're going to kick your feet up and just tell people what to do, please never do it. Please just stay in IC.
It's a high investment leadership too. The ones that thrive the most in sales leadership, because I am a strong people person and I cherish my team. But there's a deeper investment on the sales side, not just saying that it's all about the money, but it's literally like your success is also riding on their success.
Yeah.
And you have to understand their motivations in a real intimate way. Just also another anecdote, two VPs of sales that I really respect went the CRO route, and then they're both now CEOs of SaaS companies. And so I think that they're better CEOs because of that. I think these companies benefit when they had someone that went up through the trenches and really got to know the market. Because that's another thing, maybe we didn't touch on this in sales, and maybe you have some thoughts on it, but you're not just leading your team. There is an aspect of leadership that you're projecting into the deal also, not coercing or manipulating, but those same character traits have to go to the person you're talking to on the other side of the Zoom call or the phone too. Yeah.
Well, if you ever read like job descriptions, I mean, even of a salesperson, but especially at least like, VP of sales level, we're expected and CROs, we're expected to know so much about the market that we're going to be leading, along with building world-class teams, be the most accurate forecaster in the world, know how to get your hands dirty, but also know how, you just read it. You're like,
help us with 3 new product launches.
Know how to communicate with every single department, understand how product works, have a marketing and background. You're like, MBA preferred, and you're just like, what are you talking about? But to be fair,
I got too much to say about that.
I know, but to be fair, it's great when you can understand how, personally, I think the best executive sales leadership, and to your point, like a CEO, why those CEOs probably are really great ones, is because you have the ability to always stay boots on the ground and high level.
Yeah, I think so.
And
yeah, I think so. It's trite or cliche to say that sales pays the bills, but I had a brilliant CRO on from Israel. She had a story of a startup that picked her up, and they were going through a lawsuit. So like one of their major bank accounts was just froze. And so she had to get together and like get the money, go like get different channels of income streams. And I think if you're a CEO that has a sales mindset, you wouldn't just throw in the lot and be like, well, guess that one didn't work out. What's chapter 32 look like or whatever that is. No, it's huge. What else, Lindsay? Is there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to cover?
You better cut us off now because I think you and I will keep covering all the things we'd ever want to cover.
No, I love it. It was amazing. Let the audience know where they can find you and what you'd like to give them or who you'd love to work with.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I am there. I'm a little nuts on there. So if you like really boring people, don't follow me. But you can find me there anytime. Or you can go to lindsayrios.com, and see a little bit more about the ICP and forecasting Poopy pipeline stuff. But it's easy to find me.
Perfect. We'll put all those links in the show description and the show notes. If you guys made it this far with us, if you like this episode, I want you to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.